Imagine you're all alone in the middle of a jungle, relying only on your survival skills. But this time, you're not just facing wild animals or nature. You're up against something that's not human or animal, and it already knows everything you're going to do. The movie starts with a man named Doug Woods. He's a wildlife photographer and also the host of a survival show called Woods vs., kind of like Man vs. Wild. In the show, he goes to remote forests and wild places to teach people how to survive. 2 seasons of his show have already been made. Some viewers liked it, but it didn't do well enough for any major TV network to pick it up. Now they're about to film season 3. If this one doesn't get sold either, Doug and his crew could go broke. So Doug is under a lot of pressure and facing tough times. Doug often cracks jokes during his survival show, but maybe that's part of the problem. Viewers don't seem to enjoy his humor, and that could be why no major TV network has picked up the show yet. Now with their future hanging by a thread, Doug and his team have decided to take a big risk. They've chosen one of the harshest places on Earth, the remote forests of northern Canada, for their next shoot, hoping it will finally make an impact. The film shows Doug quietly leaving his home late at night. He doesn't want to wake his wife or his young daughter, but they still hear him and come to see him off. His daughter has recorded a heartfelt video message for him, something he can watch when he feels lonely or afraid out in the wild. It's meant to give him strength during the toughest moments. Not long after Doug's crew arrives in an RV, the team includes his younger brother Terry, the show's producer Bill, and a woman named Angie. Their destination is a few hours away, and during the ride, Doug chats with his crew. They're clearly feeling discouraged and concerned about the show's future. They try to convince Doug that he needs to take things up a notch this time, do something bold or unexpected to win over the audience. If not, they all risk losing everything and having to walk away from the show for good. Doug is troubled by these thoughts too, though he doesn't say much. Still, he reassures everyone that he's going to give it his best shot. To take his mind off things, he plays a game of chess with Terry during the drive, a game he's always loved and finds comfort in. Eventually, they arrive at a small town where they plan to meet their local guide, someone familiar with the area, since the forest they're heading into is known to be dangerous. At a nearby restaurant, they're introduced to Duncan, a man who lives in the region and will be guiding them to the drop-off point. While they eat, Terry pulls Doug aside and suggests he skip the jokes during this season of the show, saying they hurt the ratings. The comment stings, leaving Doug feeling disheartened, as if his personality isn't good enough for the show anymore. After the meal, they set off again. The plan is to take Doug deep into the forest by boat. He'll be completely alone out there for 5 days, after which the team will return to pick him up. For emergencies, Doug is given a satellite phone so he can call for help if anything goes wrong. Before parting ways, everyone gives Doug advice about what kind of content he should create, urging him to do more unusual, attention-grabbing things that might finally make the show a hit. They're under pressure and they make it clear that if this season fails, they could all lose everything. Though Doug is hurt by their bluntness, he doesn't show it. He keeps his feelings to himself, not wanting to seem weak before the challenge has even begun. As they continued their journey, it suddenly began to rain. Duncan calmly told Doug that this was just a taste of what he'd be dealing with out here. The wilderness was unpredictable and unforgiving. Eventually, they reached the edge of the forest where Duncan dropped Doug off. With a few final words, the group left him alone. Now the real challenge was about to begin. Doug set up his camera, officially starting the next season of Woods vs. He opened his backpack to check the items he'd be relying on for the next 5 days. Inside were a hat, a camera flash, an energy drink, an apple, a harmonica, and some chewing gum. That was it, just these basic items to survive the wild. His first priority was finding a place to sleep. He hiked up a short distance to a higher, safer spot and decided that would be where he built his shelter. With only a few hours of daylight left, he got to work quickly. He collected wood from a broken tree, picking pieces with soft branches to make it easier to handle. But while working, a splinter got lodged deep under his fingernail, causing sharp pain. Gritting his teeth, he managed to pull it out, but it was a harsh reminder that even the smallest things could be a serious challenge out here. After some effort, he finally finished building the shelter. With nightfall approaching fast, he knew the next step was just as important: building a fire to keep wild animals away. He decided to use the energy drink can. By scraping its metal surface, he tried to create enough friction to spark a flame. After half an hour of struggling, he changed tactics. Using the reflective side of the can, he aimed it toward the sun, focusing the sunlight onto a bundle of dry wood. After a few tense moments, the wood finally caught fire, his first real success in the wild. Nightfall came quickly, and Doug decided to check in with his team using the satellite phone. On the other end, his crew was casually chatting and enjoying themselves. Hearing their laughter while he was struggling alone in the wild made Doug feel a little disheartened. But he reminded himself, this was his job after all. That night, Doug had to go to bed on an empty stomach. He hadn't had the chance to hunt, and there was nothing to eat. Exhausted from the day and warmed by the fire, he eventually drifted off to sleep. But in the middle of the night, he was jolted awake by a loud, thunderous explosion. The sound was so powerful it left him shaken. Though he couldn't figure out what had happened. He assumed it might have been an earthquake and tried to calm himself before falling back asleep. When morning came, something felt different. As Doug got up and looked around, he was shocked to see smoke and fire in parts of the forest. Then something massive fell from the sky into the river nearby, shaking the ground violently. Doug rushed to the scene and saw something disturbing. Every fish in the water was dead. Whatever had fallen, it seemed to be toxic or dangerous. Doug suspected it could have been a meteor. Still, from a survival standpoint, the dead fish meant food. Doug was hungry, and at first he was relieved. He now had something to eat. But just as he was about to act, he spotted a wolf in the distance. The animal approached the river, sniffed the air, then turned and walked away without touching a single fish. That moment made Doug pause. The wolf clearly sensed something he couldn't. If the wolf didn't trust the fish, maybe Doug shouldn't either. Worried, Doug decided to contact his team and report what he had seen. But when he reached for the satellite phone, it was dead. No signal, no connection. That's when he started to put the pieces together. Whatever fell from the sky must have disrupted the communications too. Possibly a meteor strike. Now, with no working phone and nothing safe to eat, Doug was left with one option: hunt. Still starving from the night before, he needed food urgently. He set up 3 traps in hopes of catching a rabbit or some other small animal. And while waiting, he continued filming his surroundings, documenting everything, including this strange, unsettling turn of events. Before sunset, Doug went to check the traps he had set earlier. And to his relief, 2 of them had successfully caught rabbits. As he bent down to collect his catch, one of the cameras he had positioned nearby suddenly toppled over on its own. Just then, Doug heard a strange, unfamiliar sound echoing through the forest. Assuming it might be the wolf again, he quickly picked up the camera and made his way back toward camp, keeping alert. To avoid attracting predators, Doug decided to clean the rabbits a short distance away from his shelter. While doing this, he kept his camera rolling, documenting the process for his audience. Once finished, he returned to camp and once again tried to call his team using the satellite phone, but it was still dead. He pulled out his personal phone, a gift from his daughter, but as expected, there was no signal. Feeling alone and discouraged, Doug played a video his daughter had recorded for him. Her words brought him comfort and gave him the strength to carry on. But just as he started to feel better, he heard the same eerie noises coming from the trees, like someone or something was quietly watching him from the shadows. Fearing it might be a pack of wolves, Doug hurriedly ate his food. Since he couldn't carry both rabbits with him, he decided to store one. Facing the camera, he shared a survival tip, tying the remaining rabbit upside down by its leg and hanging it from a tree branch to keep it out of reach from animals. As night fell, Doug returned to his shelter and passed the time by playing chess alone, using his small board. But the strange noises returned. Doug looked around, scanning the darkness, but saw nothing. He tried to brush it off and focus on his game. Unbeknownst to him, something or someone silently approached and took the rabbit he had hung up. Whatever it was, it moved with purpose and intelligence. It didn't act like an animal. That's when the unease grew stronger. Soon after, it started raining. On camera, Doug tried to act as if his shelter was holding up well, but in reality, it was useless. Water poured through the structure, soaking him completely. The ground beneath became wet and muddy, making it difficult to sleep or even stay warm. Then Doug heard an animal cry from somewhere nearby, sharp and haunting. It echoed through the trees and froze him in place. He quickly grabbed his night vision camera and scanned the forest. But no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't see anything. Doug was now feeling scared, and because of that, he couldn't sleep at all during the night. By morning, his whole body ached, and the lack of rest was really starting to affect him. Deep down, he wanted to give up, but he kept hiding how important this show was to him. So despite the pain and fear, he forced himself to keep going. He grabbed his camera and went to check on the rabbit he had stored for breakfast. But it was gone. Someone or something had taken it. Doug was terrified. He knew no wild animal could have done it in such a clean, deliberate way. Panicking, he picked up the satellite phone and tried calling his team again. But as before, there was no signal. Trying to stay strong, Doug reset the traps and waited. When he returned to check them later, he was shocked. His traps had been emptied again. but not by animals. Instead, he found a strange black substance under one of the traps, and it was glowing faintly. Doug was stunned and went back to take a closer look, but then noticed something else even more disturbing. His satellite phone was missing. Then he saw that someone had moved a chess piece on the board he was playing with. That was the final straw. Doug now knew for sure that he wasn't alone. Someone was out there, watching him, messing with him. He started to wonder if maybe it was a fan playing tricks on him. Another thought crossed his mind. Could it be one of his own team members trying to make the show more exciting? That idea gave him a little comfort. He decided to light a fire, turned his camera back on, and kept filming. After all, he still needed footage for the show. That night, he carefully thought through his next move in the chess game, then finally got some rest. The next morning, Doug packed up and left the area. He wanted to move to a new spot and set up camp somewhere else. A little further along, he found a large rock and used it as part of his new shelter. He lit another fire and got ready to search for food. This time, he tried to catch some fish, but the water was completely empty, so he began looking around for small animals to hunt. As he wandered deeper into the forest, he suddenly froze. In front of him was a shelter, one that looked exactly like his. It even had a fire made using the same can, just like he had shown in his videos. Someone was copying everything he did. At first, he thought it might still be a fan trying to mess with him, but then he noticed something even more alarming. His missing satellite phone was lying there, taken apart, as if someone had been studying it. Doug was now truly terrified. Nearby, he discovered the dead bodies of both a rabbit and a wolf, tied up in the exact way he had shown in his videos. Then he heard a noise and quickly hid under a rock. As he looked around, he realized someone had built a massive trap, perfectly replicating his own survival techniques. He backed away just in time, knowing he could have been caught in it. Shaken, Doug ran back to his camp, only to find that someone had made another move on his chessboard. This one so clever that even Doug couldn't counter it. With no other option, he decided to stay put for the night. He set up 3 cameras around the area, hoping to catch whoever was watching him. But when he woke up the next morning, all 3 cameras had been knocked over. That's when the fear hit even harder. He wasn't just being watched, he was being hunted. Whoever or whatever it was hadn't hurt him yet, but Doug knew that could change at any moment. It was clear now. He needed to escape, because something out there was tracking his every move. Doug began filming the final scenes of his show when suddenly a loud blast echoed through the air, followed by a powerful shockwave that knocked him into the water. He struggled to swim to shore, bleeding from his eyes, nose, and ears due to the force of the impact. Soaked and shaken, he squeezed out his clothes, put them back on, and started running, desperate to escape. In his panic, Doug lost his sense of direction and accidentally fell into a deep pit. Just before losing consciousness, he saw a shadowy figure watching him from above. When he came to, injured and weak, he tied his wounded hand with his shirt and climbed out of the pit with great effort. Doug eventually reached the location where his team had set up camp. The tents and equipment were still there, but the people were missing. Then he spotted his brother Terry hanging from a tree, tied up just like Doug had once hung his prey. Doug hurried to get him down and found he was still alive, though barely. Looking for help, Doug rushed inside to use the radio, but it was dead. When he came back out with a first aid kit, he finally saw the one responsible, an alien, not human, standing before him. It had been stalking Doug all along, mimicking his actions and studying him. The remains of Doug's team were nearby, their bodies mutilated, their skins stripped away. The alien made the same eerie sound Doug had heard in the forest. Realizing he was in danger, Doug ran, luring the creature toward the same pit he had fallen into earlier. The plan worked. The alien fell into the trap, and Doug buried it under a pile of heavy stones, hoping it was enough to kill it. He rushed back to help Terry, but it was too late. Terry had died, leaving Doug completely alone. Doug, heartbroken and exhausted, gently covered the bodies of his fallen team. Realizing he might not survive, he recorded a final message for his family, just in case no one came to rescue him. Needing strength, he re-watched the video his daughter had made for him. Her words reignited his determination. He wasn't going to give up. After bandaging his wounds, Doug looked around the camp and found a map. He noticed Duncan's house was 6 kilometers away. Without wasting time, he gathered himself and started walking. As night fell, he finally reached Duncan's cabin. It was empty, but the TV was still on. That's when the film took a shocking turn. The news revealed that what Doug thought was a single alien crash wasn't isolated. Millions of similar aliens had landed all over the planet. Major cities were in ruins, and the government was urging people to evacuate. Doug, already far from the city, was safe for now, but the realization hit hard. His family might not have made it. Even so, he refused to give up. He gathered supplies from the cabin and prepared to leave using Duncan's boat, determined to find and protect his family. But just as he was about to leave, Duncan showed up, pointing a gun at him and demanding he leave the boat behind. Doug refused. He couldn't waste any more time. Before Duncan could act, the alien reappeared and killed him. It then turned its attention to Doug, but Doug fought back fiercely. In a final act of survival, he killed the alien by smashing it into pieces using the boat's propeller. As Doug caught his breath, thinking the danger was over, he looked up and froze. The sky was filled with incoming meteors. More aliens were arriving, and with that haunting image, the film ends.